I will go ahead and.
Welcome to those of you filing in. We're just going to give it about 30 seconds and then we'll get started. For those of you who aren't yet on Slack or in our Slack channel, we're going to be running the question and answer session and chat through Slack. So there's a link in our Zoom chat, which is just accessible to the hosts. So you can find that there and make sure to join our OSP panel AMA channel in Slack. Just give it a few more moments. Great. Well, thank you so much to all of you who have joined us. My name is Kristen Manukian, and I am a program director at the Learning Agency, and we work in partnership with the Center for Risk and the Concord Consortium to run the Data Science for Everyone Coalition. And we're very excited to have this, what will be an informal conversation with three fantastic panelists from TERC, the Young Data Scientists League, and NetApp to talk about their programs expanding data science education. Before we start, or as we're starting, just take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to hear about you, your organization, or school or district, if you're coming to us from a school or district. And Breaker, let us know a bit about some real world data sets that maybe you use or topics that students can explore using data, things that might be interesting to them rather. And at any point in that chat, if you have questions for our panelists, don't hesitate to answer them. We have a couple members of our team who are also managing that chat who can respond to you as well. And for those of us who are just joining as we're introing, as I mentioned, we are running the chat not through Zoom, but through Slack, and you'll find the link to join in the Zoom chat. And if you're already in our Slack workspace, make sure you're in the OSP panel AMA channel on the left-hand side. So just a quick intro of our speakers. We are joined today by Michelle Mann, who is a senior manager at NetApp, and their Data Explorers program has been piloted with schools in North Carolina and India and is expanding. And they're getting students engaged in projects and data, particularly surrounding the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We are also joined by Andee Rubin, who is a principal scientist at TERC, and TERC's data clubs are offering after school and summer opportunities for middle schoolers in partnership with schools and local organizations. And finally, Lisa Neshyba is joining us from the Young Data Scientists League. She's the director of teaching and learning. And their Young Data Scientist Quest program is empowering students to apply data science to solve real world problems in teams. So after a quick presentation from each of our panelists, we will spend the majority of our time answering your questions. Thank you so much to many of our participants today who submitted their questions in advance. We're going to try to get to as many of them as possible. And also those of you who would like to submit questions in the Slack chat, please do that at any time. And as I said, we'll try to get to as many as possible. You've probably heard that we are recording this call. So we're recording the AMA and we'll post it on our website and our socials. And if we don't get to your question during the chat, something that's worked well in our previous events is that we continue the conversation over Slack in the coming days. So any questions that we don't get to, we will tag our participants in and they'll answer over Slack and engage some of the other members of our Slack workspace who weren't able to join us today. That is the home. The Slack workspace is the collaborative home for the Data Science for Everyone Coalition. So before I turn it over to our speakers, I'll just give a little bit of background. I see a lot of familiar names in the participant list, but ones I don't recognize as well. So I'm excited that we've got some new names and faces joining us. The coalition launched last spring with the mission of advancing K-12 data science education and data literacy for every student. And at the moment, we have more than 800 members, and members make up really any data literacy advocates. So that's teachers and schools and policymakers and organizations and industry leaders and individuals who care about and understand the importance of data literacy and making sure every student is equipped with those skills. As I mentioned, the coalition is housed at the Center for Risk at the University of Chicago, and it's run in partnership with the Learning Agency and the Concord Consortium. And really what we're aiming to do is help folks understand and advocate for increased data literacy. It's a topic, and data science is a topic that's often misunderstood as something that can only be applied in mathematics or for a technical specialist, but really we all know that data is everywhere. There are so many real world topics that we can explore and get students excited about, whether it is sports and football statistics or something like your own health and COVID vaccines, really anything. We're constantly interacting with data every day, and it's so important for students, whether they go into data science as a professional field or not, to be literate in navigating the data and the world that we live in. But the reality is that very few districts and states are providing such data science learning opportunities to their students to prepare them for these real work and real life situations. And today we're very excited to hear from three out-of-school providers who will talk to us about the ways that they're getting students engaged and excited about data science after school. So I, with that, am going to kick it off by handing it over to Andee from TERC, and she will share her screen for a quick presentation and some background on their work.
Okay, are you all seeing my screen that says Data Clubs on it? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to be talking about a project. First of all, let me say the TERC is, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit educational R&D company in Cambridge, Mass. that focuses on math, science, and technology, education, and a lot of research. So I'm going to blend in my presentation some of the kind of research that we do in this in the context of data science. So this project is called Data Clubs. We have created data science modules for middle school students, currently administered or offered out of school in both summer camps and after schools with some boys and girls clubs with the Y. But we've seen a lot of uptake actually starting in the last year or so from people in schools as well. So I think it's interesting to see that schools are maybe catching on. This work is done in collaboration with people at Science Education Solutions, and it's funded by the National Science Foundation. So I want to start with what our pedagogical goals are, because I think it's really important that we think about what is it we want students to come away with from these kinds of experiences. And as Kristen already mentioned, we want students to be aware and appreciate that data are everywhere, that it's not a weird topic, it's something that you come in contact with every day, but that the measurement process that creates data is actually quite complicated and needs to have some attention paid to it. So there are questions to ask about where data came from. We want students to be able to find patterns in data. That's really what working with data is about, is making meaning of data by finding patterns. And we want them to be able to use an accessible tool to create graphs and to make data moves in order to find those patterns and to take that skill with them when they leave the program. I could spend a lot of time on the next topic, but I won't, but I'm happy to talk about it more later. What are the basic data concepts that we want students to come away with? And some of those are distributions, how you compare groups, what does it mean for two variables to covary? How do you filter to get subsets of data that might help you find patterns? And the last bullet that I have here is also to realize that data always have variability and uncertainty in them. So those are the data concepts we want students to come away with, and to know when you get a data set, which questions can it answer and which ones can it not answer, maybe just as important. So the basics of data clubs, it's designed for after school or summer camp implementation, but as I said, schools seem to be getting interested. In general, there are about 10 sessions of 60 to 75 minutes each in each module. And really importantly, each module is based on a topic. So we don't pick a statistics idea and build a module around it. We choose a topic and let the statistics ideas come up from that. We vet those topics with the Youth Advisory Board. I'll tell you those topics in just a second. And all along, we're doing research as well as development to really learn how youth think about data, what conceptual challenges they face, and how to support their increased understanding. And we have a lot of data on, we have a data dispositions instrument, but we have pre-post scores on, we do individual interviews, we have field notes, we've written a bunch of research papers. Again, I can talk about that later. We have design criteria for our modules. So the three topics that we have designed around are, one is about teens, their use of time and their use of technology. Another is about Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases. And the third one that we are almost done with is on sports and leisure injuries, which we call injuries on and off the field. Each of these brings up different statistical ideas because they are different kinds of data that have different data structures. In general, there were some questions about data sets, and I'll talk about this more later. Most of our data sets have 10 to 15 variables and several hundred cases, but there's some other criteria for data sets that I can talk about later. And the tool we use is CODAP that was developed by Concord Consortium. Again, I can talk much more about why we use CODAP, why we don't use coding as a way for middle school students to get introduced to the power of data and to their power over data. And as I said, there are many more things I'm happy to elaborate on. I did want to make sure people know that our modules are available for download free at www.terc.edu/dataclubs. We've had over 100 downloads just in the last couple of months. And so there's some resources that are available to the public. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andee. I am going to pass it over to Michelle, who's going to talk about the Data Explorers program with NetApp. And just a reminder for folks who've recently joined us that we're running the chat in our Slack workspace. You can find that link here on Zoom, and then meet us over on Slack and drop your questions in at any time for our speakers, an intro of yourself, of course, and we will we'll get back to them when we move over to Q&A. Over to you, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Mann. I'm neither a data scientist or an educator. I'm a corporate philanthropy person, and I am pleased to be on this panel and among so many people who are working hard in classrooms and out of classrooms to create meaningful experiences for young people. My co-panelists are doing awesome work, and we're trying to build on that. So at NetApp, we're on a mission to help address the opportunity that Kristen described earlier, and the gaps that exist, especially when we're talking about underrepresented communities. So our focus is really on students who might not have access to these kinds of experiences. And I just want to give a shout out to Andee, because it really all began with Andee's data clubs, which she just described to you. we heard about her great work, and we're excited to partner with her around extending the concept around data that is in the context of social issues. So we think kids really care about social issues and they want to have an impact in their community. My experience in working with Youth Voice in the last 10 years or so has really proven that, and I'm glad to bring this over to NetApp. So together with TERC, our friends at Concord, hi Chad, the Tech Interactive, which is a technology and science center in San Jose, California, and with our partners in India, with the India STEM Foundation, we created what we call NetApp Data Explorers. And I'm going to share, there are some pictures of our students who have been participating. The program runs 12 weeks after school, again, middle school students, and here are their happy faces. You know, despite COVID and the challenges of that, with Andee's leadership and some amazing partners, we were able to engage over 350 students in India and in the United States so far as part of our pilot. In the US, students are meeting after school like a club, and in India, the teachers are using the curriculum in their classroom. So Data Explorers really is broken down into 4 pieces. I'm going to take you on this learning journey. Aware and Inspire. This is where the students are collecting fun data about themselves and their classmates, and recognizing, as we all do, that data is everywhere. And they also learn about the UN, the United Nations, and the Sustainable Development Goals, and compare data from different countries on different topics. And then we go to the Explore and Investigate phase, where students are using CodeApp, the wonderful CodeApp tool. They dive deeper into the UN data, manipulating data to compare information, and they're then from the global data down to very local data to get inspired. Then our next phase is visualization and interpretation. And in this phase, students are learning different ways to display data and how to tell a story with data. We use graphs to investigate their own questions and see the patterns and relationships that are coming out. And then it culminates with a problem solving and taking action focus. So we ask our students to take a local issue that they want to examine. They create a call to action and communication about how to raise awareness around those solutions. NetApp employees get involved at this stage to help coach student teams around the issues, as well as with their presentations that they make to NetApp employees and community leaders and family members and others in the community. Here are just a couple of charts that have been created by our students to demonstrate their learning. And I just want to say that the social issue data is very compelling to students. The feedback we received from educators and the kids is that they really do care, and this is really important to them. Let me stop sharing. Did I stop sharing my screen? And also another thing we've learned in our pilot is that CodeApp is a real winner. Kids love using it. They like to get their hands on. They found it to be very fun. We have an evaluation that TERC created and is analyzing, and it's given us some really early insights to the program's effectiveness. We're learning a lot as we go through this pilot. Students do express and demonstrate more confidence in being able to apply data, and they understand that data is an important part of making a difference in the world. Educators have also found the program to be valuable and have given us a lot of great feedback that we can take. So in closing, I just want to again appreciate my collaborators that are on this call today. This has really been a labor of love. It's not been easy work, and we can tell you all those challenges in the questions, but you know, teaching this on Zoom is hard for a lot of us, adults and students. And, we hope to be able to expand it in person around the world over the next 3 years. So I want to thank you for inviting me to be on this panel, and I've been looking forward to your questions and connecting with you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And last but certainly not least, Lisa from the Young Data Scientists League.
Is my screen sharing?
It is.
Excellent. Thank you, Kristen. And thank you for hosting this event and for including us. We are honored to be part of it. And I am so excited by the 2 presentations I just heard. So much alignment, so much synergy, I think, going across multiple sectors of the country and the world around getting data into the hands of youth. So it's just wonderful. So I'm Lisa Neshyba. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for the Young Data Scientists League. In addition, I am a teacher, and you can see I'm in my classroom right now, but I'm on my prep. So I have really enjoyed being part of this group of individuals, which includes data scientists, educators, policymakers, and students. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program we have developed. So I'm going to start at the end here and give you a few seconds to just look at these products. We feel that the value of our program really lies in the stories that students choose to tell using the data science that we teach them throughout our program. And our awards are structured to recognize both the storytelling and the impact that these stories have, along with the technical side, the insights into deep data, modeling, AI, et cetera. So just like with science, the philosophy here is the data science is only so good as it has a positive impact on society. Feeling that I just heard resonated so strongly in the other 2 panelists' presentation. It's very inspiring. So you can see by the 3 words that we have on this slide here, also reflecting our philosophy, being very accessible to all students, allowing a great deal of cultural responsiveness throughout the program and in the storytelling themselves. And you can see that it's very student-centered. I myself come from a science background, but also I have been part of Department of Education I3 Investing in Innovation grant work, where we dove deeply into problem-based learning. So throughout this brief presentation, you will see aspects of problem-based learning running through our goals and our pedagogy and our philosophy. Our mission is the same, I think, that we all share. We want to provide every student the pathways and motivation to use data to shape their world in diverse, creative, and ethical ways. And the belief that we're really driven by is the same, again, that we all share, that data is the future, and therefore it belongs in the hands of youth, particularly youth who have been marginalized by systemic inequities. We collect formal and informal responses as we go to guide us, make sure we're on the right path. We are currently engaged in a formal study with a group at Stanford. And between the interviews, the surveys, the pre-post tests, et cetera, we are constantly and iteratively collecting information that helps us guide our ship. We also have a student advisory board that has been with us from the very beginning, establishing the program synergistically with us, along with data scientists and educators, but also helping us establish our success metrics. And this is a quote from one of our data scientists last year in our pilot. This class is different. Normally I forget all about a topic a few days later. Of course, something every educator just loves to hear. But for data science, even if I don't have to or need to, I'm now using it everywhere. I'm making histograms for class, for Minecraft, for anything. So of course, that's lovely, lovely to hear. The structure of our program is similar to the others you've heard today, in that there's a boot camp build season. data games. The language here is reflective of FIRST Robotics because we loosely modeled ourselves after them. And again, from the very beginning, from boot camp all the way to the data games, where those first 3 images you saw were from the data games, were from winners of last year. Throughout this entire process, students have been elevated to have equal voice in how this works, its accessibility, its messaging, etc., what it's acknowledging. This slide dives just a little bit deeper into the philosophy of the structure and the philosophy of the pedagogy. So once again, low floor, high ceiling, very accessible, but the sky is the limit for how far people want to take it. We are definitely building a strong community that we expect to be, growing and also looking globally. And again, problem-based learning. This slide has a few of the key elements associated with our flavor of problem-based learning, but we truly, truly focus on the authenticity, the fact that students choose topics matter to them, and then tell the story through use of data and data science, whatever they want to tell to whomever they want to tell it. So it's very, very authentic to them. And meanwhile, we are helping them develop those 21st century skills of collaboration, building up their expertise and their student voice. And in closing, I think I just want to share what we're most proud of, and it's captured on the slide. We are really proud of the fact, once again, that we are focused not just on the technical data, but its use, its impact. What good is it without the story, right? And secondly, that it's really about the students. It's very student-centered. Their passions and voices are coming through with their story projects. And part of that community really is the staff, each other, and a large pool of industry experts that we are accumulating from literally across the world, as you can see through this map here, that really lends a true authenticity to what the students are experiencing. And that's all I have. And thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I love that slide on what you're most proud of. I'm really happy that we have a solid half an hour to get through some questions, because there's just so many of them here and there's so many different places that I could start. We've gotten questions on student engagement and partnerships and professional development and all those great topics. So I think I might dive right in on a question around student engagement, and it's not directed towards any panelist in particular. So I'm just going to throw it out there, and whoever wants to jump in first, please do. This is a question that came from Randy. So Randy, if you are on the line and you want to jump in as well, feel free. But the question is around how you're recruiting students to the program. Certainly if we have a data science course in a high school or at any grade level, that's a really different process, enrollment in those courses versus recruiting students to a extracurricular program. So do any of our speakers want to jump in and talk a bit about, I see Andee's raising her hand, a bit about that question?
I'll kick us off. I'm sure that Lisa and Michelle have things to add, but I think for us, in an attempt to get students who are not necessarily the students who would sign up for something with the word data in it, sometimes we recruit around the topic. So I think the wonderful thing about data is that it's not just like a decontextualized math topic. It's about the world. So we recruit around, do you want to learn about the way disease happens, the way you can prevent diseases? Do you want to learn about COVID? Do you want to learn about how teens use technology and whether the patterns you see in the world are the same as the ones that were collected at the national level? Or do you want to learn more about sports injuries? So we really focus on the topic. And I think I want to echo something that Michelle and Lisa said, and the ability to ask and answer your own questions. So this is not going to be something where you have an assignment to answer question A, but rather after some warm-up activities, you decide on your own question and you have the skills or gain the skills to be able to answer that question. So that's my bit.
Yeah, I was going to echo that in terms of reaching out based on student interest. And as Andee said, I guess the other thing I would say about recruiting is that NetApp, because we're targeting, and I'm sure we all are, to be very accessible, we are targeting organizations to partner with that are dealing with the population and providing opportunities for students who are underrepresented in the tech field. So I think, we do a lot of hand holding sometimes initially on identifying the students that we think would benefit, not we, our partners would benefit from, and relying on them to assist us in that process.
I don't have anything more to add, really. I just echo completely what Andee and Michelle just said in terms of approach.
I love that. That really resonated with me around recruiting related to topic and area of interest. We talk to people, when we are growing our coalition and trying to convince folks that data science and data literacy is important. We struggle with language all the time. I don't know that we've necessarily gotten it right. And we hear that from coalition members, experts in data science. How do we present this issue? Yeah, and the importance of this topic. So, if it's resonating with students, that's a great learning to apply to the other stakeholders we're trying to bring into this conversation as well. And the beautiful thing about all of the programs that you're running is that it does get students excited about topics and things that they care about and things that are interesting to them. I'm interested, and this has come up in a couple of questions as well. I know, Andee, you're focused specifically at the middle school level. Michelle, I think I heard you say that you're focused specifically at the middle school level as well. When we first started this work, and I think a lot of other people think about data science at the high school level, but starting even earlier than that is so important for so many different reasons. Breaking down barriers to these fields before they form, or hopefully before they form as one, and just generally that we need these skills sooner. So I'm interested to hear you talk a bit more about that, and if you have experience engaging students at different grade levels, how your approach might change. And whoever wants to jump in first, that's another one.
I don't mind starting here. In our pilot last year, we did run it with middle school and high school, and we are still doing the same thing this year. And we did discover with middle school, there was a need for more structure, not a ton more structure, but slightly more structure, slightly more hand-holding. And by the time you get to high school, there was a kind of the reverse of that. There was a need to empower and instruct just enough so that the high school students could take it in a direction they felt they wanted to take it. So for us, really, it was all about the structure and the hand-holding and the organization itself of the information.
One of the things my colleagues on the phone will remember, we think of data explorers as an appetizer, if you will, on the menu, and this is, an entry level experience. This is getting people, students excited and inspired, and then we hope to be able to, scaffold that with other programs in the future that will help them. But we think of it as an appetizer, and then you sort of really can understand the level that we're working with. Andee, I know you have probably a lot to say about this.
Yeah, I think part of why I started my talk with pedagogical goals that were really based in research on data and the way people understand data is that middle school kids are at a different level of development, and their math skills that have to go into different kinds of data understanding, even knowing about proportional reasoning and rates and things like that, are at a different level than high school students. The ideas of distributions and uncertainty are not something that they've been introduced to at all. So we think very hard about what is a reasonable thing for students to come away with in this middle school context that is very accessible and that they can build on. So if I were doing something for high school, I might choose a different tool. I might not. I think CodeApp is just so wonderful. But with middle school students, for example, I wouldn't start with coding. With high school students, I might introduce coding. So I think there are really a lot, and there is a lot of research, although there's also a need for an enormous amount more research. But there is a lot of research over the last 30 or 40 years about how people gain data skills. And I'll put in a plug for a special issue of the Journal of the Learning Sciences in January of 2020 that has a bunch of articles in it about that. That is a good introduction for people who want to see what's the state of our understanding of how students learn about data.
What about prerequisites to your programs, both that and students who may come in with different levels of experience, whether they are at the super early stages or ones who've already explored either on their own or in a separate program? And then alongside that, do you have certain competencies or skills that you're looking for students to have achieved by the time they finish the program?
I'm willing to keep talking, but I don't want to hog the airwaves. We don't have any prerequisite skills. I actually remember working with one student in a Girls Inc. Program who understood about data, but made her graph with the axis on the other side. And the kind of dilemma of how do you work with someone who has some understanding but has different conventions was just a kind of fascinating puzzle for those of us who were facilitating that data club. I think the pedagogical goals that I outlined at the top are really the ones that I hope students leave any of our programs with. Probably most that they see data everywhere and that they have a sense that they can work with it and make sense of it. So some of the other things I said are a little more technical about ways of thinking about data, but I bet I'm seeing lots of head nodding from Michelle and Lisa that we all want students to feel empowered to use data for their own purposes.
I can add a tiny bit. That was great, Andee. For YDSL and the Quest, in terms of the skill levels coming in, again, because we are all on the same page about accessibility, there's no prerequisite whatsoever, even at the high school level. But we have spoken a lot to robotics founders, to robotics teams and advisors and students, and we completely borrowed from them a model which has worked really well for us, which is about the team structure. And we allow our students to create roles within the team that speak to those level of competencies they come in with. And what this, to our experience, has served well is that those with high technical competencies who might already naturally be gravitating toward data science, they know what they need to do, they know what to do. But we also tend to attract the storytellers, the artists, the creators, and that side of the brain, because they can come in and fill in the other half. And therefore, by creating roles on the team that are specifically calling out these different skill sets, it invites a very broad range of young people to come in and then collaborate. And at the end, we do want all of our students to have, as Andee was saying, these core competencies, based on the pedagogical principles we're all following. And so through the activity and through the program, everybody should be picking up the skills to different levels, and it just might express itself a little bit differently.
I think the only thing I'd add other than empowerment that NetApp is interested in is the idea that, every job in the future is going to be using data. That we all use data at NetApp. I'm not a data scientist, and I work with data daily. And so I think that in addition to being able to feel empowered and know how to use data, it's important for them to understand that no matter what career they go into, this is something that will be important and hopefully inspires them.
I'm going to pivot a little bit with the next question. We've had a couple of questions from Rick on the call, Stephen and Esmeralda. So if any of you want to jump in and add to this conversation, feel free. But it's around professional development and the teachers for your program. So who are they? How do you help ensure that they are knowledgeable about data science and how to help bring develop teachers professionally as it relates to data science. I'm also interested, I will add to that as well. Michelle, I know you have an employee engagement component to the work that you do as well. So I'm interested in adding that piece to this conversation around those who are engaging with the students.
Well, maybe I could start here. We wanted to create a program that any person could help a young person to get through, right? So a facilitator type role, educator, adult educator. And, because we're a pilot, we've been learning, a lot that some, in the after school setting, when they're not educators by training, that, they need a lot of support, friendly tools. Andee's been providing ongoing support for our educators. They got training in the beginning in those concepts. They went through Code Up themselves, they're learning that, but it is an issue. Going in the future, I think we're going to be looking at first more ways to support that educator, whoever they are in that setting, but also to maybe identify STEM programs that are existing at Boys and Girls Clubs or whatever the organizations are that we work with. So I think it's a balance, because again, it's an appetizer, so we don't need a data scientist to do this with a young person. So ongoing support, I think, is a really important piece. And as to the volunteers, we like to engage them because we think that they can reinforce that message around careers. And they can also, again, not data scientists are volunteering to do this program. And, they're learning something, but they're feeling a really wonderful sense of giving back to the students. And so that's how we engage them, and they're learning alongside with the students in a way.
And similarly, Lisa, the Quest program has a mentorship component as well, drawing connections between industry and the topics that students are tackling. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And in the context of this question about teacher development, and is that what you're asking about? Like, how does that connect to? Okay, yes, the mentors play a big role, and they provide additional data science expertise that teachers may not have. They provide also just human hours in terms of the nuts and bolts of supporting students, such as helping them find data sets, helping them interpret that. And the other piece is our program is kind of standalone. And just like Michelle just said, our teachers go through the program right side by side with the students, myself included. I am currently learning data science by running it through as the after school advisor. And it's a standalone program that allows that. But you're right, the mentors play a key role in all of that. We do provide support too. We have office hours and training. And I think the other piece that we have found we needed to support our teachers in is really about the problem-based learning piece, how to allow student teams to fumble forward and create their story and discover their knowledge and put it all together, and allowing them that learning process that develops so many important skills along the way.
And I can just say, since I did help NetApp develop the training for the teachers, that we've found when we work with schools, we found a lot of kind of hidden possibilities for people to lead these sessions. So we have librarians, for example, and I know that NetApp is working with libraries internationally. So I think there are people who are used to working with information or data. A lot of them are in libraries and media. And so we should also think about that as a source of people who already have some of the right kinds of ideas. Mathematicians are others, but they have a different set of priorities and assumptions. And so I think we have to be creative in terms of who we have be the people who are facilitating these data experiences.
I want to ask one more question about teachers that came from Stephen before pivoting to questions about work and workforce preparedness, because we're getting a lot of questions about that. Lisa, I wonder if, as an educator, this might be something that you can speak to. Stephen asks, he says, we've got a lot of schools interested in bringing data science to their school, but they just can't find teachers. So do you have any idea where to start?
Well,
That's a big question.
It's a big question. I'm the kind of person who begs, borrows, and steals, as I think a lot of teachers do, like, good ideas, and we see it modeled. And so I try to emulate that. So if I can generate excitement by work that I am personally doing, and it's a model and the students start talking about it, then other teachers are interested. For example, I am running 3 teams in my school right now. 1 is after school, and then 2 are with my astronomy courses. And the students are now talking about data science and how it's applying and how they're interested, and other teachers have started hearing about it. And I have had conversations with other teachers, specifically social studies teachers, who are looking for projects to do after the AP exam. And anyone who's taught AP classes knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's go, 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 push, push, push. And then middle of May, and you're like, now what do we do? And the students are like, why are we studying? We've taken the exam. So if you can get something that's really self-contained in a little module of a few weeks and something they can get their hands in, this is kind of the perfect answer to that, right? So in some modeling, getting excitement out there, having the students talking about it, making sure it's easy for teachers, that it's not going to be, they don't have to go out and prepare or do anything else because they're all exhausted, especially this year, and then showing the benefit.
I want to give
I was just going to say that Greta on the call has a follow-up question. Greta, do you want to unmute and share your follow-up question for Lisa? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I was going to say that's on the spot.
You were on the spot.
I just said, you had mentioned that, the program you work with, you are learning alongside the students, and a lot of teachers don't necessarily feel comfortable with that failing forward approach. So what are some ways, or how do you help teachers feel, or support teachers in feeling confident to be okay with that?
Greta, that is such a good question. And that underpinned a lot of the work we did during our I3 grant, where we learned about problem-based learning. It really was being vulnerable with your students in developing expertise right alongside of them. I don't know, Greta, that I have a really great answer for you, unfortunately, other than, once again, if they see it and they see that by being vulnerable in one's lack of expertise in a certain area, that students actually respect you a little bit more if you're open to that, and they see that you can also learn and gain right alongside of them. So really it's about experiencing it and seeing it, and it's just developing that comfort. I'm sorry, Greg, I wish I had a better answer for you, but you know, that's the only experience I have had that has worked.
Lisa, if you had an answer for that, a real answer for that, we would be taking you to, you know, the national level to do it. I wanted to just do a shout out to a colleague who run Holly Lynn Lee at whom I'm sure, Kristen, you probably know her, who is putting a lot of effort into training teachers to teach data science, and has a platform that she's in the middle of developing. So for, I think mostly high school teachers, but I suggest that it is hard to find people now, but there are more and more training resources being developed, and that's a place to look for gaining those skills. And I'm sure someone will now ask me, now, who is that again? So I'll put it in the Slack.
Thanks, Andee. I actually wanted to ask this next question of you as well, though I'm sure all of our panelists can respond to it. We've had a number of questions about career opportunities for students in data science. And I think a lot of people have that question. Okay, I have data science skills. Where can I apply them? Both with someone with data scientist in their job title and someone in a totally different field using their data science skills. So both in your own perspective and when you talk to students, how do you talk about opportunities in the future that they can use, where they can use these skills?
I think I kind of already mentioned that, you know, we believe that data skills are important no matter what career. And, you know, when you've got a finance person, maybe a data scientist, you know, experienced designer, and an HR person, all helping with these teams, then, you know, you're exposing them to the variety of jobs that at a company, at a tech company, you don't have to be a scientist to work at a tech company. So that's at least my perspective on the issue. I'm sure the others have thoughts.
I don't think that's come up as much with our participants, but I think you can ask anybody, what are you interested in? And as soon as they tell you what they're interested in, you can think of a job that includes their interest in data. So I don't think of it specifically as, well, now you're going to go work for a large tech firm, but much more that these data skills will be useful in just about anything you do.
I think the only thing I would add to that is echoing what Michelle just said about exposing them to, I mean, that's really one of the roles the mentors play, as Michelle, you were saying, just from all these different walks of life and really modeling directly how data science is used. We happen to, at our district, also run a STEM career fair, and the career fair consists of a number of different panels. And one of the panels is a computer science panel. So, you know, bringing these voices in any way possible and telling their stories. So it's really just what was said too already.
I am looking at the clock and I know we only have a few minutes left. So I want to ask one more question. And I'm going to ask a question about partnerships, which I think is a nice way to end. All of your programs involve partnerships, whether it's with schools or community actors or industry players. So it's a fairly general question around how you navigate and establish effective partnerships. I think one thing that's come up a lot in these questions, and I'm looking at a list of like 30 questions here that we haven't been able to get to. So there's just so much excitement and interest in this work, but I hear a lot around how do we partner with school districts in particular. So I'll let you answer, you know, in any way that you want, but that is a theme that's come up quite a lot. How do we reach schools and districts? And how do partners reach us as a school or a district?
NetApp Data Explorers is really after school, and it's happened at a school, but with an after school program. So we haven't had a lot of experience with, with districts and individual schools. So I don't think I can really speak to that.
I've been interested when we started data clubs. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was really clear that the schools weren't ready yet for data science curriculum, which is why we started out of school. But as I said, I have more and more people reaching out to say, I want to have a data science project in my social studies class. Let me take a look at your materials. So I think, and I just reposted in Slack the website for people if they want to download our modules. My general take on partnerships is that both partners need to respect one another and respect each other's priorities, and that sometimes requires a negotiation. It certainly requires a conversation. So that's just kind of an underlying philosophy of partnerships.
Yeah, I was going to say about our non-school partners, it's absolutely about trust and building relationships. And in our case, I feel like they're part of our program, right? I mean, there's like no distinction between NetApp and, the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, it's just like they are our partners. We trust them. We understand. They're helping us. We're helping them. I mean, it's just a important thing to have a really strong and positive and honest relationship.
I
couldn't
sorry,
agree
go ahead,
more.
Lisa.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Is being really clear on your own goals, being really clear on what they need, and coming into that conversation with the win-win in mind. So what Andee and Michelle already said is spot on my experience.
I was just going to add that I think that the point that you made, Andee, about starting with after school in communities where they're not necessarily ready for data science, in the school, in the district, is a really great way to bring these opportunities for students where it may be a couple years, hopefully less than that, before they have the opportunity to take a class, or where they're learning that in their courses. So to educators or other folks who want to see these opportunities in their schools, a program like the programs that we're learning about today could be a really great place to start. So I know we've just got 3 minutes left, so I'll end by saying thank you so much to Michelle, Lisa, Andee for joining us. It was really a fantastic conversation. And I mentioned we've had Ask Me Anything events previously, but this is our first panel with 3 speakers. So it was really nice to have this conversation with you and to share more about all of your programs. And I hope that our participants have some insights to bring back to their colleagues or their partners or students. As I mentioned, we'll share the recording via email. If we didn't get to your question, and there were many that we didn't get to, and you'd like us to pass them along to our speakers or make sure that we address them in Slack, I think my colleagues have posted our email address in the chat, so don't hesitate to be in touch. I also want to make 2 plugs before we leave. For anyone who is going to be at South by Southwest EDU next month, the Data Science for Everyone Coalition is really excited to be there and would love to see you. So Steve Levitt and 3 other fantastic speakers are going to be joining a panel and hosting a meetup, so a networking session where we will also be launching our 2022 commitments campaign. So we had our inaugural campaign last year. We're going to have our second commitments campaign this year, and that's where you can really put your stake in the ground around the efforts that you are taking to advance data science and data literacy. So my colleagues as well have posted 2 links to info sessions that we're organizing. They're not for another month and a half, but register now for the date that makes the most sense for you. And we would love to connect with you, whether there or at South by Southwest for those of you who will be in Texas. Are any of our speakers going to be at South by Southwest? No?
Is it hybrid? I mean, is there a way to go remotely?
It is hybrid. Yeah, it is. It will be in person this year, but there's a hybrid option or a virtual option. Yeah. Great. Well, we are exactly on time. So thank you again so much. And we hope to see you at the next event. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.